In this lesson, we'll be taking a look at a Task 2 essay from an IELTS 7 Plus student. I'm going to go through it, give it a Bandscore, give it loads of detail in feedback, and also make some changes to try and get it up to those 8.5s and 9s. Super useful lesson for you where you can get into the mindset of the examiner, but also really further your understanding of how IELTS writing pieces are marked. So without further ado, let's take a look at the question. In some countries, people prefer to rent their home than buy one. Slight change from Google there. I don't think it needs it. What are the advantages and disadvantages of renting a home? So this is a question that is highlighted on the IELTS 7 Plus course. It's a common question that I see you students working on, and I think it covers a pretty traditional, classic IELTS Task 2 format. And that's, of course, the advantages and disadvantages question type. And also this idea of like home owning, just normal everyday life is something that's often shared in the topic sentence. So yeah, it's a good one to look at, and also one that many of you do send me over examples of your writing for. Okay, first things up. This looks to be, how short is that? Slightly worrying. Just made it. So I was thinking maybe between 240, 260, 253. So only 3 words over that word limit of 250 words. Do try and get over that. Generally, I would recommend to be pushing your writing towards that 280 mark, which gives good amount of detail. You can give more examples, and you can expand your ideas with beautiful language, of course. Task 1, all about reporting data, academic, boring stats. Task 2, we can add more interesting vocabulary and all that kind of language that is important for Task 2. Okay, so let's take a look at this. As I say, as I go through each sentence, each section, I'll talk about errors or improvements or things that are good and give feedback as we work through. In many parts of the world, people are more comfortable with renting their home than purchasing one. Let's take a look at the paraphrase. In some countries, people prefer to rent their home rather than buy one. In many parts of the world, in some countries, so that's a direct paraphrase, people are more comfortable with renting their home than purchasing one. Really, that is an excellent example of paraphrasing. Prefer, more comfortable with. So that's a direct paraphrase there. Renting their home than purchasing one, to rent their home than buying one, buy, purchase. Really a fantastic bit of language there, paraphrasing language used. So I wouldn't change a thing. In fact, I'd probably write that myself. Okay, sentence 2. I will explore the advantages and disadvantages of this trend. This, especially in the advantages and disadvantages question types, you can just shove that in as your second sentence for every single advantage, disadvantage question. So yeah, that's perfect, and well done for following my advice of just writing that in for sentence 2. Okay, firstly, I will discuss the advantages to renting a home, to rent a home. So we're using this form to verb, the infinitive, and that's an error there. So a slight grammar error. We can also see, of course, that Google is even suggesting this. Firstly, and I would probably like a comma in there. Let's add that in. Firstly, I will discuss the advantages to renting, of renting. I think more colloquial, more natural to say of renting a home. And secondly, I will weigh up the disadvantages that this choice can bring. That seems pretty good to me, so maybe just that one error. Firstly, I will discuss the advantages of renting a home, and secondly, I will weigh up the disadvantages that this choice can bring. Now, I wouldn't have that comma there. I don't think you need it. For this opening section, I think you need it. And secondly, Yeah, okay, I'll leave that in. I don't think that that's much of an error, to be honest. I will weigh up the disadvantages that this choice can bring. Okay, that's a very good introduction. Just one small edit there. So looking pretty good right now, very strong. And we're going into our first paragraph here, supporting paragraph 1. It is true that in many countries all over the world, people are more and more frequently working at an international level. So they need to move from a place to another, and for this reason they prefer to rent a home than buy one. Okay, so there's definitely going to have to be some edits we're making here. The language generally used is pretty good. You know, there's some good English used in there, but there are definite errors. Also, this sentence is long. We have quite a few clauses. There's many different clauses or separate ideas thrown into this sentence. So I think that we could probably split it up into 2 sentences. Now let's go through and make edits as we go. It is true that, comma, no need for a comma there. So something that I see happen a lot is the overuse of commas. So it's great to use commas, but again, if you use them inaccurately, you can lose marks. It is true that in many countries all over the world, I would probably write around the world, but let's stick with that for now. All over the world, comma, okay, people are more and more frequently working at an international level. I don't think you need that more and more. I think we can just stick with are more frequently. More and more sounds almost a little bit too informal. It's something that maybe you might say in conversation, but academic writing, you probably wouldn't use that repetition really. People are more frequently working at an international level. Now, that's a good topic sentence to introduce your idea. So is, I don't want to sound mean on so or the writer, but I hate the use of so. In informal conversation and speaking, so is okay to use, but so really is a nothing word. It really has no real purpose in academic writing that I believe. So can pretty much always be changed for a full stop. So take that so out and just put the full stop in, and I bet nothing has changed with the sentence other than improved structure. Let's have a read through. It is true that in many countries all over the world, people are more frequently working at an international level. They need to move from a place to another. Okay. International level. So they need to. Okay. So I would say, I said so myself, because of this, you could get rid of this sentence here and write because of this instead of so. Or possibly change this. These people may need to move from place to place, or a place, or whatever it is. Okay, so an edit there. Frequently working at an international level. That's all we need for that first sentence. These people may need to move from a place to another. So that really, from a place to another, this is where you could add some colloquial language, from place to place, which has the same meaning, but this saying from place to place is almost idiomatic language. It's a colloquial phrase that native speakers use. And in your writing, if you were to use these phrases, it makes you sound more fluent, more native, and therefore you'll score more highly, especially within vocabulary and use of language. These people may need to move from place to place, and for this reason, no need for the comma there. So again, another overuse of comma. So punctuation in parts needs to improve. These people may need to move from place to place, and for this reason, they prefer to rent a home. These people, I think there's a slight edit we need here. These people may need to move. Tell you what, let's change this to often need to move from place to place, and for this reason they may prefer. So we're talking hypothetically here. We're talking about possibilities. We're not saying specifically, we're just talking about what is possibly a problem here. These people often need to move from place to place, and for this reason, they may prefer to rent a home rather than buy one. Whoop, apologies for the spelling. Rather than buy one. To rent a home rather than buying one. Rather than probably would change to this verb form here. Rather than buy one, I think works rather than buying one. I think as the verb phrase here or the noun phrase, that works better. For instance, good use of a sentence opener. Renting a home could be a very smart choice for a freelance worker that travels a lot for accomplishing his professional duties. Yeah. Fantastic. I like that. I'm just going to put that in italics because I don't think that needs any editing. For instance, renting a home could be a very smart choice for a freelance worker that travels a lot for accomplishing his professional duties. His or her, it's small. I don't think that's going to really move much in your marks, but it's probably better to be a bit more inclusive. Accomplishing, and even better than that, I can just put there, professional duties. I don't think that's too much of an error, really. In the same way, young people could find it more interesting to rent a home instead of purchasing it, so they can choose a little apartment, which could probably better suit their financial situation. Okay, so I think I understand the meaning of this. Renting smaller apartments will be easier for maybe people who have less money. But the way this is phrased is a little bit confusing. It's not quite as easy to understand the meaning. In the same way, young people could find it more interesting. I don't think that really is the correct use of interesting. I don't think it's about people finding it more interesting. I think it's about them having access to certain markets, whether that's low-cost market of renting or high-cost market, which is obviously buying a house, which takes more money. You've got to get a deposit and pay for the house, and it's more expensive. So I think we need to change some of the language there to rent a home instead of purchasing it. Again, let's just take that so out. I don't like the use of so. We'll put that in bold. Let's just change that for now. So we'll come back to this section in a moment. They can choose. We'll go from that later, but let's have a look at this sentence here. Just overall, so far, pretty good. I'm kind of, there are quite a few edits to get it up to those top 8.59 levels, which is very normal. But overall, I'm thinking 6.5, 6.5 at the moment. There are quite a few edits that, to really improve things, but about a 6.5. In the same way, young people could find it more interesting to rent a home instead of purchasing one. In the same way, young people might find it easier to rent a home instead of purchasing it. So I'm not using any crazy language here. I'm just simply changing that language. More interesting? No, not really. They'll find it easier. In the same way, young people might find it easier to rent a home instead of purchasing it. They can choose a little smaller. They can choose a smaller apartment, which could probably better suit their financial situation. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good. There you go. So let's just have a read back through this supporting paragraph. It is true that in many countries all over the world, people are more frequently working at an international level. These people often need to move from place to place, and for this reason, they may prefer to rent a home rather than buying one. For instance, renting a home could be a very smart choice for a freelance worker that travels a lot for accomplishing their professional duties. In the same way, young people might find it easier to rent a home instead of purchasing it. They can choose a smaller apartment, which could probably better suit their financial situation. Yeah, that's great. That's an excellent supporting paragraph, if I do say so myself. Giving myself a pat on the back there. But it was pretty good to start off with. A 6 probably is what I'm thinking. A couple of small edits and it'd be up to a 6.5, I think. Okay, let's take a look at supporting paragraph 2. On the other hand, renting a home can not always be easy. Renting a home is not always easy. I think that works better. Okay, yeah, good use of a sentence opener here. Renting a home is not always easy. In some countries, it is not granted to find a housing, as the metropolitan areas are nowadays very demanded. And furthermore, rents could become barely affordable for some young people or students who mostly look for an economic type of accommodation. Okay, so straight away I can see there's issues with sentence length here. So that's a really long sentence. So I'm going to have to really chop this up a little bit and try and make some changes here. So probably back down to a 6 for the Bandscore. In some countries, it is not granted that a person can find housing. It's not granted that a person can find suitable housing. Why did I add the suitable there? Well, purely because I want to show off a little bit. Suitable housing, that's like a common colloquial phrase, but also it just uses a little bit more vocabulary. It makes it sound a bit more academic. Why not? If you feel confident about using a phrase or a piece of language, throw it in. It is not granted that a person can find suitable housing, as the metropolitan areas are very demanded. In high demand. So that would be the edit to make this more natural, to make the change in sentence structure here. So it's a grammar change and a sentence structure change, as the metropolitan areas are in high demand. Okay, and obviously you just saw that. I was doing that without talking about it. That and there is a great area to stop. New sentence, move on with your ideas. Sometimes I can see from this writer as well, the use of so and is used in place of where a full stop would be better purposed. Really, when we've made a point or introduced our full idea or gone into the detail that we need to, and we're ready to change or move on, change idea, full stop. Don't connect ideas that are obviously relevant but are expanding on each other too much. Don't use linking words in place of full stops. So instead of and furthermore, we can just begin the sentence with furthermore, I would think. Let's read through. Furthermore, rents could become barely affordable for some young people or students who mostly look for an economic type of accommodation. Furthermore, let's say rental costs. So again, a bit more of a colloquial expression, just accuracy of vocabulary. Furthermore, rental costs could become barely affordable. Yeah, okay, I'll stick with that for now. Could become barely affordable for some young people or students who mostly look for an economic type of accommodation, who mostly look for cheaper and more economic types of accommodation. There we go. Mostly look, my bad. For cheaper and more economic types of accommodation. So just again, some edits to get the grammar accurate, get the sentence structure accurate and flowing. Let's read that back. Furthermore, rental costs could become, I think I have an issue with this modal verb. Rental costs might, may, could possibly, you know what, I'm going to stick with could and put could possibly become barely affordable for some young people or students who mostly look for cheaper and more economic types of accommodation. Economical. Let's get the vocabulary accurate. Okay, in addition to this, nice way to start the sentence. Once a person rents a home, it is not possible to make huge changes in the home's architecture or interior design. So just a small error here. We just need to make sure our articles are all organised and in the correct places. So I wouldn't change that. That's a pretty good structure and sentence. Okay, and we're on to the conclusion. So let's read through this. In conclusion, we can say that there are actually positives and negatives considering the facts of renting a home instead of purchasing one. I think there's some changes needed here. In conclusion, we can summarise, I think we can say is a little bit too informal. We can summarise that there are many positives and negatives when considering the facts. Is it the facts? When considering the facts. Okay, I'll stick with that. When considering the facts of renting a home instead of purchasing one. Not bad, that conclusion. I'd probably write something slightly different, but yeah, that's okay. That works for me. Okay, so there you go. I'm not going to read through the whole thing again. Quite a lot of changes. That introduction paragraph was making me think, right, we might be on to an 8 or one of those top scoring essays. But in fact, when I got more into the nitty gritty, the supporting paragraphs, it did seem that there was quite a lot of edits needed. And I would say that probably around that 6 mark, Bandscore 6, with just a few edits, especially just edits to those commas and starting sentences again, and just making sure that we're not using commas to continue really long sentences. I think if those 2 edits were made to those 2 long sentences, it would probably be a 6.5. But just because of that, it meant there was quite a lot more editing that needed doing. So overall, probably a 6. And there you have an example of an essay that's, up there, probably 8.5. I'm not sure it's quite a 9 because I'd rewrite the conclusion differently. But yeah, it's probably around that 8.5 mark. Some good language used in there. So that takes us to the end of this lesson. I hope that you found it useful. What I will do is add this as a model answer after this lesson in writing, so you can have another read through. And as I always say, it's really good practice to read through these model answer writing things that I put up for you multiple times. Don't just do it 3 times and think, oh, that's fine, I've internalized and learnt the structures. Read them 3, 4, 5 times each every day. You'll be surprised by how much, and I stress this so much, how much repetition can help support your language learning. And just read through them again, watch the videos again, and keep reading, and it will definitely help you. And as ever, any questions, drop me a message and I'll get right back to you.